Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Next Gen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at Next Gen Planners. And today is Friday when we're recording this, and I'm hugely excited to be joined by Bryce Clark from Wellington Wealth up in Glasgow. How are you doing today, Bryce?
Yeah, I'm good, Dan. Thanks for having me on. Give me the opportunity to talk.
Nice.
How inexperienced I am with surrounded by all these experts and the rest of the podcast. But yeah, I'm good.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I think, even though, like you said, you're quite new to this stuff, but you've got some big ideas and some big plans. So it's quite a useful perspective, actually, to see, what the profession looks like to people who are just starting out and things like that. So it's really, really good.
Definitely.
Do a sense check of how we're doing. So if there's anyone out there who doesn't know Bryce, he is a financial planner in training at Wellington Wealth. I think what's the official job title that you've got at the moment?
Is it client services?
Client services.
Client services. Yeah, it's mostly administration jobs, like just the usual things like client reviews, stuff like that. Awesome. Not really too much technical knowledge yet because I've not done my exams yet.
No, of course. And we were just talking beforehand, weren't we, that you're actually doing RO1 shortly.
But
it's not cool because it's probably the least exciting exam in the world. But then we've got to do it. We've just got to do it, haven't we? So we can't do anything about it. So to kick us off, Bryce, you kind of spoke a little bit about what you do there, but could you just go into a bit more detail about what it is that you're actually doing at the moment on a daily basis and the kind of stuff you're involved with?
Yeah, sure. So kind of how I start off. So I wake up in the morning and I have quite a decent commute to the office. It's about an hour. So I come in the train, blah, blah, blah. It's great to come into Glasgow. I used to work at an office near me when I left school for a big pension provider. And it wasn't a very long distance. And then we obviously worked from home for the past 18 months. So it's been really good to get into the office. And when I came here, it was a brand new office as well. So that was even more exciting. I come in, we kind of sit down, depending on what day it is. One day a week, we sit down as a team, get together and kind of get our heads together and think what we're going to do that week. And if not, I kind of sit down and watch the BBC World News service in the morning, just to kind of see what's going on. And then I'll do some studying on the train. So like at the moment, because I'm doing my RO1, like I said, I use that hour a bit more productively than just sit scrolling through TikToks, which was what I did for the first month. I've been using that time. And then kind of just getting into the day-to-day administration stuff of doing client reviews for Nicola, the advisor. So if she comes out of a meeting, I'll do like some of the follow-up and just kind of like taking a bit like workload off the actual advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Just supporting the rest of the team. So that's mainly like the bulk of what I do. And then 5 o'clock comes, we finish, go to the gym, and then I'll study on the train, get another hour in-ish on the way home, and then I'll work on my Instagram or YouTube stuff, or I also run another website for the golf club that I play at as well. So, but that doesn't take too much to do, to be honest. That's like once a week. And then, quite busy.
Good stuff. That's like a day in the life of Bryce Clark, which is good.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's interesting the way you study, actually. Like, you can, it's quite a gift actually to be able to study whilst commuting, because there's certain people who can do that, and there's certain people like me who can't do that because I get distracted by stuff. So it's quite a useful skill actually to be able to.
It's kind of weird. I was thinking about this the other day, and that I was terrible at studying at school and I hated it and it made me anxious. But now that I have an actual purpose with my studying and something that I actually want to do, I find studying a really good downtime. So see the hour before and after work in the morning and at night, it's actually quite nice to just sit down and get my head into the books and having a goal for that day of studying and just sit and get through it. That's quite enjoyable. Yeah.
It's very, very rare that happens actually to have his study in his downtime. But I can see your point. Quite lucky actually that you see it like that, because that's really useful to you as well. So, so I think you're actually in a very interesting position. I think you might be our possibly youngest and certainly newest person who's come into the profession or who's been on the podcast. So it's a really interesting perspective actually to see what you've come across so far and what things you've kind of had to overcome. So what have been some of the barriers to entry so far since, maybe before you entered the profession, and also some of the challenges since you've joined as well?
Yeah, so just like a kind of background on how I ended up here, like a lot of people kind of left school not knowing exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I decided I want to be a PE teacher because I was good at golf, good at football, and teaching seemed like something that I was doing. I was clearly not in the right state of mind to make that decision, because that would have been the worst decision of my life. And instead, I didn't apply for uni or anything, and my granddad, he was a man from the Prue back in the day, so I joined them just a few months after I left school. Worked with them for 3 years, kind of like got a lot of experience working in pension administration. They actually gave me quite a decent amount of opportunities in terms of like presenting to people and doing training sessions. And there's so much to learn from that, so much to learn, especially trying to teach people that are a lot older than me and been in the industry longer than me. It brings a whole nother range of skills that I've managed to kind of develop. So then that wasn't too hard to get, to be honest. It was the first job I went for, and I got it. But after that, when I decided I wanted to get into financial planning and becoming a financial advisor, the first thing I did, because we worked with them at Prudential, so I kind of knew who they were, like what they do. And when I started to Google it, it came up with a lot of American stuff, and it was saying you need to go to uni, you need to get this, that, the other. And I kind of just lost hope with becoming a financial advisor. And then when I was working in lockdown, I stumbled across the Next Gen podcast from yourself. And I started to hear people's stories and kind of resonate with them. And I heard people saying like that they didn't go to uni, and some people did go to uni. And it sounded like a really good opportunity. So I started getting into that. I did a few exams at Prue, just like level 3 exams, just to kind of get my foot in the door. But then the barriers kind of came when I wanted to enter financial planning. So like the product provider side, that was kind of easier to get into because it's so massive.
Yeah.
But the financial planning stuff, especially up here in Glasgow, a lot of the things were in Edinburgh, which Edinburgh, firstly, if you don't know Edinburgh, it's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive to live there. It's expensive to rent. And as a young person, you just can't afford that.
No.
And if you want to travel in every day as well, it's also more expensive for that, from where I live anyway, and it's less convenient. So there are those areas. And then obviously you have the smaller financial planning offices throughout Scotland. And I was basically applying to a lot of them, and they were coming back saying, we're a 2-person financial advice firm. We can't afford to take anybody on. Sorry. And then I'd apply for somewhere else, and I'd see that they're looking for young, new people into the profession. But then I'd go in it and it would say 2 years experience using IO or 2 years experience in financial planning. Well, I didn't have that. I worked for a provider, but I didn't have any direct financial planning kind of like experience. So that was the first barrier, the kind of lack of experience that I had. But also, like everybody says in most industries, but it was really difficult at first. So just like kind of a tip, if anybody's listening that wants to get into it and they're kind of stuck, because I genuinely thought that I would just be doing the same job forever, because I couldn't get my foot in the door with financial planning. And what I did was I applied for all the ones that I could see on like your usual websites, that I thought matched up with what I wanted to do, my goals. And then I Googled the top 50 or whatever financial planners in Scotland, and I basically put them in a list, like a spreadsheet, one night, and I said, by the end of the week, I'm going to email my CV out to every single one of those. And even if I get one reply, then that's one reply better than I would get if I'm just sitting doing nothing. So a few days went by, and I'd sent about 50, it was about 45 to 50 emails I'd sent. kind of just outlining my goals and stuff and what I've done and what I want to do. And a few offices kind of came back and said, we don't have space for you, blah, blah, blah. And then Wellington Wealth kind of got back to me and said, that sounds really interesting. We had a first meeting and we just we got along really well straight from the off. And they really liked what I was doing, my kind of goals and stuff. But that was one company out of 50. And that's 49 rejections.
Yeah.
Really, because a lot of them would have seen it and just totally ignored it. Some got back to me with feedback and stuff, which was also really helpful, and I did appreciate that. But that's kind of the barriers that you face as a young person. And a lot of them were actually coming back and saying, sorry, we're a family-orientated business. We don't have anybody else coming in. The dad's the advisor, or the mum's the advisor, the secretary, and then they've got the new trainee, which is like the son or the daughter, and it's kind of hard to get your foot in the door in those areas. And I do understand it, but at the same time, you kind of need to, if you want the industry to progress, you need to diversify and bring people from elsewhere and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the main barriers that I found to start off with anyway.
Yeah, it's weird because, we've actually got an abundance of clients and not enough financial planners to serve them. This is the advice gap in the UK. We've got too many people needing financial planning or needing financial advice, and not enough people actually to serve them. So you'd imagine that it would actually be quite easy to get a job in financial planning at the moment, but in respect, it's not at all.
I know the thing is as well, though, I do understand why they might not think to look for people my age, etc., and they don't have things in place for people my age, because people my age, it's not a university course. You don't go to uni for the most part to learn financial planning. Like, it's not a course. You pick accountancy or something like economics, finance, and then you go into financial planning. But you don't need to do that. You don't need to go to uni to be a financial advisor. So I can see why they kind of recruit the people they know, and the industry's just kind of, that's maybe why some people think that it's not progressing the way it should, because it's I mean, that's part of the problem is describing it, that we still sometimes describe it as an industry, and if we want it to be a profession, that profession like accountancy is something that you have to do at university or to a higher level before you can do it, and that's why it's so popular for most people. Financial planning, like you said, I mean, there's only a few universities in the UK that actually do financial planning as a degree level. The majority of people either fall into it, or their families are financial planners or something like that. So it's like nobody knows about it at school or anything like that. So no, definitely not.
Yeah,
none of my friends had any idea what. When I mentioned to them, they just say, "Oh, is that like an accountant or an investment banker or something?" I'm like, "That's absolutely nothing."
Absolutely not. Yeah, and if you tell people what you do, if you tell adults what you do, sometimes they're like, I don't know what that means. And then you say financial advisor, and they're like, and they're still not convinced about what you actually do. So, okay, so I mean, obviously very passionate about that and getting people into financial planning, but something else that you're very passionate about is the need for financial education for the general public, and especially the younger generation in the general public. It is being taught now in schools, money, which is good. I haven't been to school in a long time, longer than I would care to declare. But so I don't know what it's like, but I would imagine that it's perhaps not at a level that we want to get to just yet. So there's lots of people launching their own projects and things to help, which is fantastic. And you've recently launched your own one as well, called Clark's Financial Sparks, which is cool. And you're aiming to tackle this kind of lack of education amongst the younger generations. So can you just tell us a little bit about it? Briefly tell us what the aim was and what you're kind of planning to do with this kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So it kind of has developed from my own experience and my own lack of knowledge and experience in education with personal finance. I mean, when I left school, 3 months after I left school, I joined my first time full job, where I made a decent wage. I was making about £1,500 a month, and to someone that has no financial literacy, that is £1,500 to spend.
Yeah.
And I regret that now. and that continued for 3 months. So I would spend the whole £1,500 because I have money, might as well spend it. There's nothing else to do with money. That's the idea. You work a job, you make money, and you spend it. And I do regret that now. And I just feel like I was never taught about money really. And it's easy to say that schools should teach money. They don't really. The school I went to, it was a state school. Like they don't teach money at all. There's nothing. There's literally nothing. And I think the onus now is kind of on parents and social media, people like myself, hopefully, that can help kids, because kids don't really listen to their parents sometimes. Like I didn't when I was growing up, for the most part. So if kind of like people on Instagram and that can start getting a follower base and putting the correct information out there, because there is a lot of incorrect information, which is what I want to cut through. There's people, when you say financial advisor, that kind of thing, they all think get rich quick schemes, all those kind of things. That's what my generation associate money to, the whole Bitcoin scams, the crypto scams, all that kind of thing. But that's not how it is. And I think it's really damaged the way that young people have now look at money. A lot of my friends, I can ask them, so why don't you invest your money? You have all this money saved in cash, but like it's not doing anything. Do you know what that's doing? Do you know what inflation is? Do you know why the value of your money is decreasing? And they say, no, but I'm not going to invest it because I'll lose all my money. And I'm like, who told you that? You can lose money, of course you can, but that's the risk you take on. But there are ways of managing risk, that kind of thing. But that's the first thing they think of when you say investing. They just think Bitcoin, all that kind of stuff, and they're going to lose all the money. It's all going to be wiped out. So I want to get past that and kind of help other people on their journey with finance. There are a lot of people doing it, especially in the next gen planners community. There are a few people, a lot of good YouTube channels now. But I think really just what I want to focus on right now is helping people with the basics. So what I've learned leaving school, so budgeting, like credit, what is credit? Why is having a good credit score important? Especially if you want to own a house. What is a mortgage? You need to understand these kinds of things, and then investing and saving, those kind of things. Just the first 5 years really of leaving school, so 18 to say 23, which I'm approaching soon in the next 2 years. I think they're a lot more important than people think they are in terms of your money, because even if you're not building wealth and that's not your goal, if you can start then, the earlier you start, the better, especially with education. You have time to make mistakes, you have time to learn. And by the time you're 50, you've had 30 years experience, not just in saving or investing money. You have experience in actually gaining knowledge. And that's kind of where I want to start with this. And I've had some good feedback already. People kind of saying, and I've actually seen a lot of people on my Instagram saying that they do have decent financial literacy, but it's quite difficult because it's not the most interesting thing to talk about. So the people that are on my channel are people that are interested in it, but it's how can we aim to target people that aren't really interested in it? Because at the end of the day, everybody needs to know about money. You're going to have a really difficult life if you go your whole life without having any form of financial literacy at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of starting at a younger age, just encouraging people, making pensions cool, all that kind of stuff. That's my goal.
Oh God, I don't envy you with trying to make pensions cool. Like that
It's an uphill battle.
that is a challenge. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not so much making pensions cool. It's more making the knowledge cool, making the knowledge about pensions cool, making sure people know what they can do by saving money in pension.
Exactly.
Like for instance, I put this in the community a few weeks ago about the fact that like I had a conversation with my friends. We were just like having some beers and just chatting about like just general crap, and I mentioned the compound interest calculator.
Yep.
And I showed them what you can actually achieve with a bit of compound interest over the years. I'm not guaranteeing, obviously, but I'd say you can achieve this, and they're absolutely blown away by it. They don't want to know the mechanics of how you do that. They just want to know how they can get their hands on that kind of thing and how they may take advantage of it. So it's like I said, making the knowledge cool rather than, and the outcomes cool rather than, and also I think, a useful tool actually is scaring them in a way, is saying, like you said, do you know what inflation is? That's a terrifying thing. If you actually know what it is, you think, Jesus, I
Yeah,
need to
it
be
is
doing a lot
definitely.
more than I'm doing right now to
Yeah,
make sure, because you're actually physically losing money
losing
by
value essentially in the
not
money that
being
you're
aware
spending there.
of
Exactly. And
what it is.
is
So yeah,
once you know these things, then you can start putting like plans in place and implementing like investment strategies and stuff to try and
yeah,
target against inflation, that kind of thing. And that's what I mean. I didn't know any of this. I've learned this off my own back over the past few years. And I think it's just if there's people like me who learn these things and put it out there, can't give advice, obviously, but if we just put out things that we've learned and kind of lift everybody else up with us, so that they don't make the same mistakes that I made when I was spending £1,500 a month on stupid things like clothing and drink or whatever.
yeah. Well, stupid things. I wouldn't include drink in stupid things. Um, so you kind of mentioned it before about the parents thing, and something you've mentioned in the past as well to me about the fact that adults perhaps need to do a better job of talking to their children about finance, about money and finances. And it's hard because adults don't like to talk to adults about money. So we almost need to get over that hurdle first before people are willing to talk to their children about it. But it is really important. It's very. I don't know about you. I think you actually said this, didn't you? But you weren't educated on money when you were growing up because we just never used to talk about it. I knew the value of money, but I didn't know what it was, how much we had, or what a mortgage was. And you don't learn what a mortgage is until you need one, or you don't learn, or you become a mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
Um, so what creative ways have you seen so far, in your work and your research that you've done so far, have you seen of adults educating children with this kind of stuff, and making
Yeah.
money cool?
Yep. So you're absolutely right with that. I didn't even know the value of money. I'm going to be honest. When I was growing up, my family used to like take the mince out of me because we got a place in Spain, like a flat,
Mm.
and this was when I was about 15. I genuinely thought this flat cost about €20,000 to buy. Like that's how off my actual like perception of money was. And I don't think I'm alone. Like I know other people that have came out with wild estimates of how
Yeah.
much things cost. So that leads on to this that I actually seen on Twitter when I was having a wee look. I'm obviously not a parent, so I don't really engage with people of that age. But
No.
one thing I did see, and I thought it was actually really good and simple that people should encourage, that I wasn't taught when I was younger, but you could kind of implement, is when you're out shopping with your kids, just saying to them, "Oh, can you go and get me those bananas?" And how much was that? That was £2.50. Like even just grasping the differences between how much 4 bananas cost versus like a tub of washing up liquid. Like even just that kind of stuff. And then as they grow older, you can talk to them about, oh, how much was my car? How much do I pay a month for my car? How much is the house? And you can start to kind of grasp like a perception of how much things cost.
Yeah.
And then you start to build a perception of how money is valued and how much money you have as a family, and it's just kind of that transparency that we need to kind of help. But
Yeah.
that's a massive, much wider picture. That's just
Definitely.
generally as people, human beings, and especially in the UK, we don't talk about money enough. We're not
No.
transparent about it enough. But it's the number one thing that causes anxiety in most people's lives.
Yeah.
And money can't buy you happiness, but a lack of money definitely causes anxiety.
Goodness. Yeah.
So if you can be transparent with your own kids, starting off with your kids, just be transparent with them, tell them how much things cost. I've seen stuff recently where kids have been asking for brand new iPhones for Christmas. And I'm like, that's absolutely insane. But I know I did things like that when I was younger. I would ask for things that my mum and dad, you would feel bad as a parent saying no to your child,
Mm.
but you physically can't buy it. But I didn't know that because I didn't know how much it cost. I didn't know you worked X amount of hours for that amount of money. You don't want to give up that
Yeah.
amount of money for a Power Rangers sword or something like that. So like that's kind of why you need to get the point across and show the value of money.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip. The tip about sending their kids to get stuff in the shop is a really really good tip actually.
Yeah, yeah,
Because there's certain stuff that would probably surprise them as well. Like if you say
yeah,
to them,
definitely.
like, go and get something that you thought was really cheap, and then you figure out, oh my god, this is quite expensive actually.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
cheese.
that's more pocket
Cheese
money.
was the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
Even out, yeah, I went to buy a block of cheese. I was like, this is so expensive.
Yeah, like that's really, I think as well, like the problem is perhaps that we're so ashamed of money, we're so ashamed of our relationships with money in the UK. And when you get home on a night time, in reality, you don't really want to talk about things that you're ashamed of. You don't want to talk about things that you regret or you're not happy about. You want to just kind of forget about it all.
Yeah,
And if money is one of those things, it's very hard to pull yourself out of that and just start talking about it all the time. But there's little things that
absolutely.
you might be able to do. And there's no magic wand that we can wave to do this kind of thing. But we can see the benefits of doing it absolutely, which is a more financially literate society in the future.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. It helps as well when kids like go to uni and stuff. You need to know how much things cost and how you can budget, or else you're going to end up in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I went to university, I was buggered. I really didn't have a clue how much things cost or anything like
Yeah,
that. So, yeah.
exactly.
Well, okay. So, kind of keep it on that for a second then. So, when when you're putting this content out there, when you're asking people questions and things like that, and even when you're speaking to people, what kind of area of personal finance seems to be the biggest? Like what area do people struggle with the most, and how do you think that we can actually help them with that?
Or my age group, definitely mortgages.
Mm,
They haven't a clue about mortgages, different types of mortgages, how you pay mortgages, when should you get a mortgage. And they know that a mortgage is to buy a house, like the basic essence of what a mortgage is. But they don't know that if you don't repay that, your house can be possessed, things like that. They don't know that there's a risk involved um, that you will lose your house if you don't repay.
yeah,
People that, from what I've seen, I kind of put out questions here and there on my Instagram. People have a decent perception of budgeting and how
yeah,
to stay within budgets, especially my age group. We're 21, so we've kind of had a few years out of school, at uni, etc., having part-time jobs or full-time jobs. They've got used to budgeting, but they don't actually know what to do with the money.
mm,
So especially, I'm in a point now where my girlfriend, she finishes uni next year, so she'll be going into full-time employment, and that will be across everybody my age. And I've had 3 years experience of having a full-time wage, whereas that's them just getting into it. So like I think it's just really important to get into learning the basics before you start earning the money, because when you start earning the money and you see a lot coming into your bank, for you as a lot, you can get starstruck, kind of money struck, or whatever you want to call it, and you do go out and spend your £1,500 a month on rubbish. And then,
yeah. I think as
but
well, like, I agree with you on mortgages. I think trying to explain to someone who doesn't know what a mortgage is, what a remortgage is.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
remember when I heard
exactly.
the term remortgages, when I didn't have a clue what mortgages was, I was like, oh my! Like the problem is that it scares you so much that you then put off by even learning about it because you're just like, I'm never going to understand this. I think another problem as well, which you might have come across, is like the fact that we're so bad at looking into the future and thinking about our future selves. We're terrible at doing that. I mean, you do this every day with the diets, and most people don't keep as fit as they probably should and healthy, and we're told that that'll have an effect on you in later life, and you're like, oh well,
Absolutely.
I'll deal with that
That's
when it comes. and
that's
and
half the issue in the battle of helping young people with money, is the whole instant gratification, short-term thinking.
yeah.
That's why a lot of these scams are so interesting to people, and
Mm,
because they say you can make 10 grand within a month. But
yeah,
if you were to say you can retire when you're 50 instead of 55, nobody cares,
no,
because that's miles away, and who cares about that?
yeah,
But yeah, once you understand why that's important and how you can put things in place, and it's not overwhelming once you know what you're doing. It's not this big, scary £500 a month into a pension plan every month forever. If you start earlier, it's a lot more manageable.
yeah,
That's the most kind of important thing here. The key aspect of what I'm trying to get across is the earlier you start, the easier you make it for yourself.
yeah. And small changes at the start as well, which aren't actually too
Yeah, yeah,
painful, which is
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, So let's move on from the financial education stuff and things like that, and look at you for a second. Well, I'm looking at you right now, anyways, but the audience can't look at you. You're very early on in your financial planning career journey, which is so exciting. But have you had a chance yet to think about, who you actually do want to work with? Like, who would you describe as your ideal clients? What kind of people are you looking to work with when you actually do qualify?
Yeah. So I'm obviously with Wellington Wealth, and the kind of clients they have their own bank of clients that I will also hopefully try and like help and advise on. And from my experience so far, I like the type of clients they have. And the one thing that I've definitely learned that I want to hold throughout my whole career is working with people I get along with.
Mm.
I do not want to advise people that I don't like or I don't get along with. If I can't cooperate with them and they're not willing to trust me, I know it takes time to build trust and rapport, but if I don't think I'm comfortable with someone or I can work well with them in a professional manner, then there's absolutely no chance that they could be a client. And that's the one thing that I kind of learned from getting into financial planning. I thought it was like banks and stuff where it was just churn out business, generate business, £1 million, like all this, that, and the other. But it's really not. It is completely client focused. If you're a business owner, you can go in different directions with what type of clients you want, what net worth clients you want, that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely someone that I will enjoy working alongside and helping them together. In terms of age, I mean, I'm 21, so it would be good to get people in their 30s going out that way. And because hopefully, because I'm 10 years younger, then we can kind of move through life together. And as I get older, they get older, and there's still like a stage in front of me kind of thing. So that would be good. But it's obviously early days at the moment, and I've not actually worked with any clients yet.
Yeah.
And I think I'll be able to specify and kind of get down to the actual details, like with the more experience I get.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a bit of a process of elimination because you find the people that you don't want to work with as well.
Yes, yeah.
And that makes it a lot easier because then you start to because there's so many people that you can work with, it's almost a bit of decision paralysis, and then eventually you have to kind of narrow it down and take people out and things like that you might not want to work with. So that's cool. And keeping on that for a second, then, so you've obviously got all this cool stuff. I mean, the short-term vision for you, obviously, become a financial planner, which should be happening definitely within the next 2 years. I think probably within the next year, you would imagine that you'd be close to that, anyways.
Yeah.
But if we think about a long-term one, have you had a chance to think about what your actual personal vision might be in the long term? What do you actually want to do whilst you're working in financial planning?
Yeah. So although I kind of lacked a drive when I was younger and didn't know what I wanted to do, I have always wanted to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always something I've been interested in. It's kind of what I enjoy learning about in my spare time as business owners, people that can run businesses, different types of businesses. So definitely at some point, I kind of want to evolve into becoming a business owner and being in charge of what I do and my day-to-day, my job day-to-day. And also, I actually really want to get into public speaking, that kind of thing, and professional speaking. So even if that's alongside my career and talking about my career and going to events and different financial advising events throughout the UK, that kind of thing, and talking about my own career. It's something that I just find really powerful. And when I was younger, I played in a lot of sports, and at the award ceremonies and stuff like that, we would always have speakers, and it was something I found really powerful, sitting listening to these people, how well they could talk and engage the listeners. So that's something I'm also really interested in. And I think it's also, if you want to be a business leader, you need to be a team leader. You need people to get behind you, trust you, all that kind of stuff. And it's what Nicola and Jenny do really, really well.
Yeah,
they're great leaders. They're both really good talkers. They're good at including the team and driving the whole business forward. Not just, there's no hierarchy. It's one big business. It's all Wellington Wealth. We're all going for it at the same time. And that's what I want to develop. And there's definitely a really good starting foundation here, and it's a firm that I really like, and I'm glad that I've ended up with an opportunity, and I'm really grateful that they were kind of not took the risk with me. But you know what I mean? Like, I was applying to all these companies and they kind of saw me and we fit together, and they offered me the opportunity. So definitely grateful for that. And hopefully I can draw on these experiences and keep pushing forward and become a business owner myself one day.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a really, really cool vision, actually. At least you kind of know where you're headed, which is good. I mean, it's quite easily, I mean, it's hard to be a business owner in the UK. I think anyone listening to the podcast would agree with that. But it's easy to launch your own business. Like, anyone can launch their own business and do whatever they want to. So it's good. And what you said about Nicola and Jenny, that was definitely true. They definitely are leaders. And you literally, I mean, the audience who is listening won't be able to see this, but you're sat in front of a very, very jazzy wall at the moment because you're in the financial planning studio.
I am.
And this is, of course, run by the sisters at Wellington Wealth, so Nicola and Jenny, who are fantastic people. And I only discovered last week, actually, that there is actually like a scientific, well, I don't know if it's scientific, there's certainly a theory behind what they're doing there, is that by making people more comfortable in their surroundings, you can actually get a lot more out of them and
Absolutely.
offer a better service to them. So on the face of it, it might look like a brilliant interior design project, but in reality, what it's actually doing there is to make people feel more comfortable and at home. And if anyone's listening and they haven't seen the financial planning studio yet, I don't even think it's finished. I think there's still some more work to do, which is just incredible.
Yeah, it's always evolving. I started here just as they finished the renovations and stuff, and we've still had more additions since I started
Yeah.
3 months ago. So
if
always
anyone,
changing, always evolving.
if anyone hasn't seen it, I think it's on TikTok and I think it's on Instagram. So
we're on most social platforms: Twitter,
yeah,
Instagram, TikTok, the financial planning studio.
So what have been the best parts of working, I'll say in the studio, but also working with Nicola and Jenny so far? What have been the best parts of working with those guys?
I like being part of a small company. Being part of a big company where you're just another like number, you're just another cog in the machine. Whereas here, you can really put your points forward and you know that they're both going to listen. Firstly, they're both going to listen. And then secondly, they might actually take your point on board and it will impact the way that the company's going forward. So they really involve you. And even though they are the directors and they have the last say, obviously, they do really listen to the rest of the team. And you feel like you really matter here and you matter to clients. And Nicola's fantastic with me, especially because I want to become an advisor. If I have any problems or I want some more understanding of a client's plans or anything, no matter how much work she has, she'll put it to the side and say, okay, I'll sit and talk you through it. Or if I have exam questions, something like that, or if I have fund questions, I put them to Jenny, who sits right next to me, and she sits and explains everything to me and takes their time. I don't know how they do it, to be honest. Like, they have families and stuff as well, and they run a business, and they're just amazing at it. So, yeah, it's a really good company to work for, and it's a beautiful office. And they just get, as long as you give to them, they give back, that kind of thing. It's just really good to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm quite jealous, actually. I'm quite jealous, firstly, that I'm not a client of the financial planning studio, but you guys get to work in it every day as well. I mean, compared to my surroundings, it looks like amazing. So
it's exciting. It's definitely exciting. And we're in a big old building as well with other companies. We're on the 5th floor, and there's other companies in here as well. Just walking past people in the morning, and Glasgow's an amazing place to be. If nobody's been to Glasgow, you should come to Glasgow and you can visit us. But it's a great place to be. There's always a buzz in Glasgow. There's always something going on. You can hear the buskers on Buchanan Street from where I sit. I can look all the way across the skyline of Glasgow from my seat. And then you come in here and you've got a really relaxed, chilled out place with a lot of nice art. It's very fine. There's a Peloton room with a treadmill and a bike. So there's plenty to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm quite jealous actually, especially that you can hear the buskers on Buchanan Street as well, which is really, really cool.
Well, some of them
Oh,
are.
yeah, I was going to say,
earphones in.
yeah, some of them are cool, some of them aren't. So, okay, so we're coming to the end now. But we always like to ask our guests for a book or something, like a podcast or a film or something that's helped them in their careers so far. So, what have you got for us? What would you recommend?
So I have two books, and then I have to obviously say a big thank you to Next Gen as well. Because without the Next Gen podcast, I wouldn't have taken that first jump into getting into financial planning and learning about it and connecting with people in this space. So you guys are doing a massive thing, and it's also aligned with what I was complaining about earlier with young people not being involved in money. You guys are doing a great job here, and Adam's doing great with my exams and stuff like that, and everybody else's exams. It's a great community to be a part of. And then getting on to the books. So I've got two. I've got the classic Rich Dad Poor Dad, and by Robert Kiyosaki, and it gets a lot of stick. But if you take out the good points, which I did, that I've learned a lot from straight away, the first things I actually implemented was automatic investing and the theory behind paying yourself first.
Yeah.
So when I was spending that £1,500 a month, it was going towards bills and then just spending the rest on whatever. And now, before I even pay bills or anything, I put money aside for me to put into my ISA or something like that, like my pension or whatever. So that was the first thing. And then automatic investing, taking out the human interaction with investing. Like, I got caught a few times when I wanted to invest £100 into my ISA. I would get to when I get paid and I kind of go, I don't know if I fancy that. I've got a holiday this month. I might just 100 quid would be quite good for the rest of the holiday. So taking that element out, and I even deleted the investing apps off my phone so I can't look at them. So I just kind of put money in every month. When I get paid, it comes off a few days later. And when I do check my account, it's so much better. And you don't realize, to be honest, if you pay yourself first, you get used to not having that 100, 200 pounds. And the second one is by one of my favorite business leaders, Richard Branson. It's The Virgin Way.
Yeah.
So this was one of the first books I'd actually read, and it's a leadership book mostly. And the biggest thing I kind of took away from that book was the fact that businesses that are fun and have employees that enjoy being there actually are more profitable for the most part. And the fact that business can be fun, and its whole mentality of screw it, let's do it. The fact that you shouldn't overthink things, just go for it. And I really found that you've got one life, you might as well just go for everything. You might have to take longer to think over some things, but for the most part, if there's an opportunity there and you're lucky enough to have the opportunity, just take it, just go for it. Because the worst that can happen, you'll fail, and then you wake up the next day anyway, you can try again. Yeah. So I love his mentality and the whole attitude he has, and it really reflected in that book. So.
Awesome. Very good. 2 for the price of 1. I think the Rich Dad Poor Dad's been recommended a few times, but I don't think anyone's recommended The Virgin Way, which is good. So that's added another one to the pile. Yeah, so good. Thank you very, very much, Bryce. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. So that's all from us. But what I like to do, as you might know because you've listened to the podcast before, is give the last word to our fantastic guests to say thank you for coming on the podcast. So can you tell our audience where to find you and how to connect with you in the future as well?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. That's just Bryce Clark. My YouTube's Bryce Clark as well. My Twitter is Bryce Clark 21, and my Instagram and TikTok is clarksfinancialsparks. So yeah, I post regularly on most of them. YouTube's kind of on the back burner at the moment because I'm doing my exams, but Instagram I kind of try and post at least once or twice a week, and that's where I interact with people the most. But
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bryce. That was a pleasure. So that was Bryce Clark from Wellington Wealth and Clark's Financial Sparks on the Next Gen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our website, which is nextgenplanners.co.uk, where you can find more information about the Next Gen Planners training contract, the Future Leaders Program, the Blast Off Program, our conference, which is coming up next year, our brand new product advice stack, and also our amazing community, of which Bryce is a member. There's a few hundred financial service heroes in there now, and they're all amazing people. So get in and join when you can. But that's all from us for today. Thank you again to Bryce for coming on the show. Thank you guys at home for listening as always, and we'll see you in the next one.